How would you like a 15% discount to my daily email, the stack of stuff, the show notes, discounts to the conference, all of that? All you need to do is text the word show to 33777. You'll get the annual subscription with a 15% discount to my daily email. You'll get the stack of stuff, the links to the show notes, discounts to the conference, and so much more. All you have to do is text the word show, SHOW, to 33777. Text show to 33777.
Welcome to the Eric Erickson Show podcast, Hour 2.
Hello, America. Welcome. It is Eric Erickson here across the United States of America. The phone number is 877-973-7425. I want to do something real quick. My computer will cooperate. Here is C-SPAN right now in Las Vegas, Nevada.
We need all the help that we can get, and Sam Brown
That's
is the right man
J.D.
for Nevada.
Vance.
We've also got the great Lieutenant Governor.
His event is just starting. Kamala Harris is allegedly giving remarks at her home, vice president's home. Nobody is covering this. CNN is talking about General Kelly. You got MSNBC talking about General Kelly saying Donald Trump praised some of Hitler's generals. You know, some of them tried to kill Hitler. I mean, those are the ones worth praising. The whole thing's wild. Joe Rogan is going to host Donald Trump on Friday. It now turns out Joe Rogan is saying Kamala Harris turned down an invite by Joe Rogan to be on his show. The event for Tim Walz in Kentucky today has been announced as closed door. That just doesn't seem like a wise idea. This whole thing is very weird to me. The only thing that makes sense to process it is that it's all come off the rails. It's all come off the rails. Kamala Harris spoke outside her house about Donald Trump and Hitler remarks, and that was it. And no one covered it live. Nobody covered Kamala Harris's statement. They covered J.D. Vance in Nevada. This whole thing just is wild to me. Brad, I want to bring you in here from Pinehurst, North Carolina, one of my favorite places. Brad, welcome to the show.
Hey, Eric. Good afternoon. I wanted to make a comment. I didn't know if you caught it or not, but Tim Walz yesterday at his rally in Wisconsin brought up the fact that Kamala and him are doing all these events, and then started to question whether or not former President Trump would have the stamina to run a campaign, let alone the stamina to do all that is, needed as a president. Yet Trump has got 29 events, campaign events, scheduled for the next 10 days, plus what you brought up with the Joe Rogan podcast. I mean, Trump and Vance have already done, 80, 90 interviews since Kamala joined the race. And here's Kamala and Tim Walz that have only done 40, maybe 50 interviews over that specific time. I mean, Trump was just here in North Carolina on, Monday in Charlotte, Asheville, and a rally in Greenville, and then came back yesterday and did a huge rally in Greensboro. I just don't understand where Walz is coming from. It seems like everything.
Yeah, they're making it up. I mean, Walz, next thing we know, is going to claim that he's been at all the Trump press conferences. I mean, he really is just making it up. Now, to contrast that, Brad, to your point, Donald Trump is in legitimate God's country today, Zebulon, Georgia. Most of you, 90% of you, who live in Georgia, listen to me right now, have no idea where Zebulon, Georgia is. I'm looking on the map right now. It's kind of funny. This is the first time there's ever been traffic warnings. Zebulon, Georgia. Zebulon, Georgia is a tiny town in Pike County, Georgia. It is beautiful country, you should know. It is God's country. The people are wonderful. The land is gorgeous. It looks very much like where I used to grow up in, where I grew up in Louisiana, rolling hills and creeks and streams and springs bubbling out of the ground and live oaks. And it's just gorgeous country. It is way out in the middle of nowhere. Donald Trump is doing a massive rally in Zebulon, Georgia. And then he's headed to Duluth, Georgia for a Get Out the Vote event up there. Meanwhile, Tim Walz's event in Kentucky, not a battleground state, is closed-door fundraising. Kamala Harris is doing no events today other than she gave a 5-minute statement to the press outside her house. I'm convinced she's doing like super prep for her town hall and stuff. She's so nervous about screwing up, and then it gets in her head and she screws up. It's just wild. And meanwhile, people are not having a normal one. I got to play for you guys this audio. It's a Ring door camera. This is a very progressive elderly lady who has discovered that her next door neighbors have voted for Donald Trump.
Hi. I want to know how you can vote.
We can't answer the door right now, but if you'd like to leave a message, you can do it now.
Shameful.
Are you the one that walks by here and always screaming at people?
No, I haven't walked by recently.
Okay, because a lot of people walk by and scream.
Yeah, I'm not surprised. You are voting for the devil. Don't you know that?
No,
Why are you voting for him?
because I believe he is the moral candidate.
Oh, my God. You for that one.
That's
Moral?
exactly right. That's how your side acts.
Oh, my God.
That's
He's
how
the
you
most
guys-
immoral person around.
In your opinion, that's
Oh,
okay. I'm sorry. Have a nice day. Have a nice day.
Who does that? Who does that? Okay, first of all, woman inside the house who I can't see, he's not a moral person. He's cheated on multiple wives, one with a porn star while she'd just given birth. And I know you all like to lie about it, but y'all know deep in your heart, you know it was true too. He's not a moral person. I don't care. But please stop calling him a moral person. I realize y'all don't care about morals anymore. I still do. I still think character counts, and he doesn't have it. But that's beside the point. Who does this? Who shows up at their neighbor's house and cusses them out because they voted for a politician? Who does that? Who does that? No one in their right mind shows up at a neighbor's house outraged at who they voted for unless politics has become your religion and you've got to burn the heretics. That's the only reason. The owner of the McDonald's franchise in Bucks County, Pennsylvania, in which Donald Trump fried French fries, has had to get armed bodyguards. He's had to get security. He's had so many death threats. He's had bomb threats to his McDonald's. He's had death threats. The press is out to get him. They've run stories. The national press has run national stories about the health report of his restaurant. It's unhealthy. So much for love your neighbor. It's unhealthy. Guys, y'all understand this, that I got a buddy of mine. It was a very tragic text message I got the other day that he says, I could use some prayer. He says, I just can't bring myself to vote for Donald Trump. He's a Republican. He's not going to vote for Harris. He says, just can't bring myself to vote for Donald Trump. My brother won't talk to me anymore. That's sick. That's a sickness. You know, I've told you all this story before in 2016 when I said that I would not vote for Donald Trump in 2016. Do you know kids at my kids' school, which was a Christian school, kids prepared a guide to suicide for my daughter and gave my daughter a guide on how to commit suicide and made sure she knew if she would kill herself, I might see the light and change my mind on Donald Trump because their parents hated me so much that I wouldn't vote for Donald Trump. Yes, kids prepared a guide to teach my daughter how to kill herself because her father said he wouldn't vote for Donald Trump. There is a sickness in this country, and don't you kid yourself that it's on one side of the aisle. It's across the board. If you really believe the world is going to come to an end because of who becomes president in 13 days, you're worshiping at a throne of idols. You know, it's actually kind of interesting. It's a correlation, not necessarily a causation, but there is a direct correlation between when most Americans identified as people of faith, was the fewest Americans who thought the world would come to an end if the wrong person got elected president. And now so few Americans identify as people of faith. It is the highest it's ever been in Gallup on people who think essentially the country's going to be destroyed if the wrong side gets elected. It is we have put our faith in politicians. You know, I don't care for Donald Trump. I'm perfectly fine supporting him. I don't expect to care for a politician. It's a politician. Politics comes from the Greek poly, meaning many, and ticks, meaning blood-sucking animals. I'm perfectly fine supporting someone I don't particularly care for. Democrats seem to think it's some major moral choice all of a sudden when the Democrats are willing to vote for a woman whose husband and put him into office as first gentleman for the first time, who probably smacked around a girl, got a nanny pregnant, cheated on his wife. Kamala Harris herself is not exactly a moral human being, and somehow, Donald Trump is next level evil. Nah, I don't think so. Donald Trump's a sinner. So is Kamala Harris. I'm just looking for someone who's not going to get rid of the filibuster and pile the court full of progressives. I want conservative judges. I actually want the Trump tax cuts to continue, which he's more likely to do than her. I'm not there to, I would prefer someone of character, someone of better character. I mean, anyone we elect is going to be a sinner, but I'd prefer someone of better character than Trump or Harris. But that's not the options. I mean, the options are one of them or that Jill Steinflake or the Cornel West kook. So if it's between Trump and Harris, yeah, neither of them have good character. I'm going to go with him because I like his policies. I like his judge picks. He's not going to go wrong picking judges. He's got a track record to prove it. She, however, is going to pick a bunch of nuts. I mean, she is part of the Biden-Harris administration that's already tried to put people on the bench who literally argued they could not tell you what a woman was because they're not a biologist. Ketanji Brown Jackson. But if you are so worked up into existential frenzy about Donald Trump that you got to go to your neighbor's house and lecture the neighbor and cuss them out because they supported Donald Trump, you are a broken person. Economically, you were better off with him in office than Joe Biden. Are you giving the money back? Probably not. You're willing to take all those good things and refuse to admit they even happened to you. I don't care for the guy. His presidency was a pretty normal Republican presidency. Kamala Harris would actually be a pretty progressive president, more progressive than Joe Biden. And the fact that she and the Democrats could not even deign to offer Republicans who don't like Trump a compromise and say, hey, our first term will be pretty moderate, will be mainstream. Dare I say, if a conservative dies on the court, we'll replace him with a conservative, and if a liberal dies, we'll replace him with the liberal, and we'll just take that fight off the table so we can at least get rid of Donald Trump together and we can move on after that. Nope, they didn't want to try. They wanted to go for broke. And you know what? If you're going to go for broke on the left, I'm going to go for broke on the right, and I'm going to vote for Donald Trump. And I have a feeling I'm going to win. And when you decide to cry and wail, you know what I will do? I will put online tickets to Delta's flight sale website so you can pack up and leave the country. You might as well. You've given up on the country. If you've decided to idolize a politician that much, you think the world comes to an end if the wrong one gets elected, you might as well go move somewhere else. Greetings, conversationalists. It's Eric Erickson here. Philip is texting Charlie and me a picture of him smoking a cigar in a speedboat along the water in Florida. He's on vacation for his birthday, and I just pointed out that I went to a restaurant before work today and did not have screaming kids, unlike him and his brother, who were at the beach with a screaming 1-year-old. Ha 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 ha. I'll take my job over that. All right, Paul, you're going to be up next. Welcome to the show, sir. How are you?
Great. And you?
I'm great.
Excellent. So I had a question for you. I'm here in Atlanta and in DeKalb County, and when I voted early, I was a little bit disappointed that there were several people that were running, granted lower ones, others. I don't have the full list in front of me, but they were all Democrat incumbents with no challengers. And it seems like that, whether DeKalb is just unwinnable for those positions, it just seems with the economy and different things going on, it'd be a great opportunity to run somebody against them.
Yeah. Okay. Here's part of the deal. You're right, and there have been efforts in the past to try to find people for every seat, but it costs those people money to file, to show up, to get on the ballot. It costs those people. It costs some time, and so oftentimes you can't, in places like that, find anyone. I'm in a similar situation, just so you know, in my county. There were the presidential race, the congressional race, and the state house race were all contested. But the state Senate race, the DA, the sheriff, the solicitor, the court clerk, none of those people, there were not a single contested race locally. And part of that is honestly that you are in an area of the state where you're not going to find anyone to contest, because you're in a part of the state where a Republican at the local level is not going to win. I'm in a part of the state where the Republican is not going to win. In fact, I voted in the Democratic primary because there were complete wackadoo running for sheriff in my county, and you win the sheriff's race in the primary. And so most of the Republicans I know voted in our local Democratic primary to support the incumbent sheriff. And guess what? He's on the ballot now, uncontested, and I absolutely voted for him. He's a good dude. He'd be a Republican if this district where we live is more Republican. So in any event, all right, before we move on, we got an expert on Israel coming up. But first, I got to tell you about Swiss America, because they've been sounding the alarm on the secret war on cash, and they would love to give you a completely free report on what they mean by a secret war on cash. If you're interested in safeguarding your hard-earned cash, you should get the report. They're rated A+ by the Better Business Bureau, and it takes less than 15 minutes to read their report. To get it, all you do is you call or text my name, Eric, E-R-I-C-K, to the number 800-289-2646. Just call them at 800-289-2646. Say Eric sent me, or just text my name, Eric, just like you do my stuff, to 33777. You text Eric, E-R-I-C-K, to 800-289-2646. You get the free report. By the way, this secret war on cash includes digital forms of currency. Swiss America can explain it to you. It takes less than 15 minutes to read. 800-289-2646. 800-289-2646. Message and data rates may apply. Hello, folks. It's Eric Erickson here across the United States of America. The phone number is 877-973-7425. I actually get asked constantly at this point, can you put somebody on the show? Can you have this person on the show? And it finally got to the point where I've got my program director and boss at my flagship station says, nope, just tell everybody no, that, when you have people on the show, people want to listen to you. And, the research on the program shows that people would rather talk to me and think they're talking to me than me talk to somebody, except I have to make very rare exception. Every once in a while, like, for example, we had the governor of Texas and Georgia on Friday. But I have a friend of mine who actually is a legit expert on the Middle East, was instrumentally involved in the Abraham Accords and worked in the national security apparatus of the Trump White House. She has a new book coming out, The Battle for the Jewish State, How Israel and America Can Win. She is a longtime friend of mine and who has, with her book, David Sling, kept my daughter's passion for art alive, because her background was also an art history professor, and now she's become this expert on the Middle East. Her husband's actually cooler than her, but we're going to allow my friend, Dr. Victoria Coates, on the show. How are you?
I am great, Eric. How are you and Christy doing?
We're great. Okay, as an aside, you bring this up. I saw an Instagram picture the other day. My God, I remember when your kids were little.
I know, isn't it awful? They're so
Yes.
large. I mean, they're wonderful and they're both thriving, but they are definitely adults.
Yeah, it's just it breaks my heart to see that you and I are old.
I know we are very old. I mean, the 20th anniversary of Red State really got me.
Yes, you and me both. Gosh. Okay, so you've got the new book out, the Battle for the Jewish State. I want to ask you in particular about the current situation over there now, and let's start with this news the other day that there are leaks out of our intelligence apparatus that appear to be willful to undermine Israel in its response to Iran.
Yeah, this is very hard to watch for those of us who really participated in what I would call a golden age of U.S.-Israel cooperation during the first Trump term. And, it was directed by the president, and it was the high-profile events like the move of the embassy and the Abraham Accords. But those were supported by day-to-day, almost hour-to-hour cooperation between our administration and with the previous Netanyahu government that was in then. And a lot of those people are career Israeli, like our folks are career, and we have all stayed in touch. And the consistent refrain that I hear from those contacts is this simply couldn't have happened. It wouldn't have happened. You would have called me. And, this has been going on now for 3.5 years. This most recent leak is the most damaging. It's verified classified information. It's basically surveillance kind of material of the kinds of assets Israel was getting ready to use against Iran. So Iran can use that to figure out what kind of targets they might be looking at. And such their planning back then, of course, weeks, if not months. And just points out that there are still elements within the Biden-Harris administration who think it is their patriotic duty to do this, to undermine Israel, to attack Israel, to elevate Iran. And that's just dangerous for the American people. Put the region aside for a minute. The Iranians hate us. The Iranians had a hit out on me, as well as on the former president, on my other colleagues, Rob Greenway and Matt Pottinger from the National Security Council staff. This is here at home for us. And so it's, that revelation was deeply unsettling.
Now, I want to get into your book. And for those of you just joining me, I'm talking to Dr. Victoria Coates, and she's got a book, The Battle for the Jewish State. And I have always first of all, I want you to know, I pre-ordered this before I even knew you were going to be on the show. I found out your book was coming out, and of course I pre-ordered it. It comes
that.
out
It will arrive in time for Christmas.
Yes, there you go.
And Hanukkah.
Christy's going to steal it from me. So you put on the one of my favorite pictures that has come out after October 7th was the pictures of the missiles coming in or the rockets being fired and the Iron Dome responding. I continue to be flabbergasted by Israel's success in defense, but then also now offense. We've got like the successor to the successor to the successor to the successor to the successor of Hassan Nasrallah has now been killed. They're suddenly on their A game after October 7th, where I think on October 6th they had gotten a little complacent and now suddenly realize they can't be.
No, I think so. And a couple of things to unpack there. I am a great devotee of that picture as well. And one of the things in the book is a lot of history about missile defense development and then cooperation, really starting with President Reagan, who was the one who had the first missile defense agreement with Israel. And then they developed Iron Dome on their own, although it is now a joint program. But one of the things they did is they put their tracers in the interceptors so you can see them. And what's so dramatic about the photograph is you just have this kind of blunt diagonal of rockets coming out of Gaza, and then these beautiful, almost serpentine patterns of the interceptors as they're starting to track the rockets, identify the ones that could hit populated areas, and then ultimately intercept them. So it is visually arresting, but then as I said, that cooperation going back to Reagan is so fundamental to our security agreement with Israel that it seemed like the best picture for the cover. And then in terms of the elimination of the most recent successor to Nasrallah, I think he's the fourth one. He might be the third. And I hear there aren't very many applicants for that job to be head of Hezbollah.
Just as an aside here, I'm wondering if there's a tip line where people are like reporting their father-in-law and say, I hear he's going to be the one. Here's where he lives.
Yeah. And so, there was a distinct change, I think, in the Israeli approach after the prime minister's visit here in July, when he met with both the president and the vice president, but then former President Trump. And I think some combination of what came out of those meetings really gave him pause about what the future might hold under a Harris administration. And then I think a lot of hope about a second Trump administration. And so he's ordered a lot of things that he had not ordered in the past over the last 6 weeks, and they are enjoying significant success. It is coming at a cost, of course, and they've lost some really good people and endured another ballistic missile attack from Iran, but they are really cutting the head off the snake. And I was talking to a Gulf partner, a very senior member of government last week, and he said, we just are applauding this. This is a new chance. And, it's a new chance not just for Israel, but also for the Palestinians. If they were to take it into their heads that they don't want to live this way anymore, a lot of their old, very corrupt, entrenched leadership is being removed. So we'll see.
Okay, you say something, and I want to meditate on that point for just a moment, because I don't think that Americans understand, given the way much of the media covers the Israeli situation, that many of the Gulf states actually privately are rooting for Israel in this situation with Iran, Hezbollah, and Hamas, because they don't like them either and feel threatened by them.
No, and that was the original impetus behind the Abraham Accords, is the Palestinians had rejected yet another deal offered to them in good faith by the Trump administration, the deal I worked on with Jason Greenblatt and Jared Kushner. I mean, we were trying to come up with something that would be palatable to them, if for no other reason than it was hugely in Israel's interest to get that situation resolved. And they refused yet again. And that was when particularly UAE and Bahrain, but as you know, they're not going to do much without Saudi's buy-in. They decided they couldn't have a veto over their sort of national security policy or regional posture anymore, and that made the Abraham Accords possible. So it's not that no one is reaching out to the Palestinians and trying to help them, but the Arabs, who have traditionally been their biggest source of support, except for the United States, are kind of done with it until they change their mindset and stop doing things like October the 7th, which are so destructive, not just to Israel, but to the region. But what gives me hope, Eric, and I'm usually such a bad news buffet that it's nice to have some good news, but what gives me hope is the fact that the Abraham Accords have endured through this year of war. Trade with UAE in particular hit a new height of $3 billion. I've heard from both sides they still think that's way too low, but they're excited that it's continuing to go up. We met with the Emirati ambassador to Israel when we were there in July. He said he's staying at his post, and I think, particularly if President Trump is reelected, and this is part of the last chapter of the battle for the Jewish state, a Saudi deal is very much still on the table, and that's a big one that would really change the region.
Are you concerned at all by some of the reports that the Saudis and the Iranians are doing some sort of military exercises together?
Not really. The Saudis are not at all confident for excellent reasons, in the Biden administration's willingness to actually defend them. Remember, this is the administration that both declared the Yemeni Houthi were no longer terrorists in the first weeks of their administration, and then in March of 2021 pulled the Patriot batteries out of Saudi Arabia, at which point the Houthi went on a spectacular campaign of terrorism against the Saudis. Mm-hmm. And so they have long memories for these things. They don't like that at all. And so I think they're doing what they feel they have to do to not be attacked between now and what they're hoping for, which would be a return of President Trump.
Oh, that would be nice if he could come back and we could have some level of peace. Are you actually the whole purpose of your book is about a future with a peace, and I've always kind of thought that we're not going to have peace in the Middle East until Jesus comes back himself. I mean, is there a path forward that you think actually works to calm the situation?
Well, I do, and I think that's where clear American leadership, plays such a critical role. And I know people have various differences with former President Trump, but the clarity he showed on the Middle East was what the region needed, and it literally led to peace, the first peace deals in 25 years. And we now have the alternative in front of us. We had it during the Obama administration, but the Biden folk, many of whom are the same people, tried it again. You're going to downgrade the relationship with Israel, you're going to freeze out the Gulfies, and you're going to try to domesticate the Iranians. And they went back to that playbook, and it was a spectacular failure. And so, one of the things that I do in the book is trace those two records. What happened, what went on, who did what, and, how on earth, when Biden and Harris came in, could they possibly think it was a good idea to revert to the JCPOA, the Iran deal mentality of the Obama administration, and not the approach of the Trump administration, which had led to peace. But that's what they did.
Yeah. The new book is The Battle for the Jewish State, How Israel and America Can Win. And folks, if you text the word data to 33777, I'll send you back a link so you can pre-order Victoria's book. Victoria, listen, I got to let you go there, but it's always helpful to actually have somebody who knows what they're talking about on the Middle East that isn't just full of spin, but actual knowledge.
Well, I appreciate that, and send my greetings to all the good people of Georgia, your family in particular, and I just hope everybody gets out and votes.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks very much. Dr. Victoria Coates, a longtime friend of the show and of me personally, actually is an expert in the Middle East. Y'all, okay, I got to brag on Victoria for a minute. She's off. She's not here listening to me now, so I'll tell you this. So when I was the editor of Red State, there was a person who wrote under the pseudonym Academic Elephant and wrote just outstanding, brilliantly insightful stuff about the military. And turns out it was Victoria. And when Donald Rumsfeld retired, after 2006 election, Bush pushed him out and he started to write his memoirs. His chief of staff reached out to me, and his chief of staff is now my book agent, Keith, and said, hey, the secretary would love to see if this man who wrote his Academic Elephant would work with him when he was secretary. Academic Elephant's writings were always in his briefing papers. And it's like, well, it's not a he, it's a she. And she's not in the military. She's an art history professor in Pennsylvania. And Rumsfeld was totally intrigued. And Victoria went on to be a foreign policy advisor for Rick Perry and for Ted Cruz and for Donald Trump, got into the national security office at the White House as a deputy national security advisor, worked with Jared Kushner on the Abraham Accords, and now she's got this great new book, The Battle for the Jewish State, coming out. You can text data to 33777. She is actually an expert. It's not her background field, and she's just marvelous at it. A wonderful person, too. Okay, now I got to move on. Colby, where am I headed next? You said something in my ear, and I wasn't paying attention. That's right. Eden Pure. It's the BOGO. The buy one, get one free. I am not a math expert. I went to law school to avoid math. But here's what I know. If you go to EdenPureDeals.com and you put in Eric Bogo, ERICKBOGO, and you buy one Eden Pure Thunderstorm, you're going to get one for free. If you buy 5, you're going to get 5 for free. If you buy 100, you're going to get 100 free. That's the way this math works. Easy math. I can do this. Not even Common Core. EdenPureDeals.com. The discount code is Eric Bogo, ERICKBOGO. Here's the bottom line. It's an air purifier, so it gets rid of dust, it gets rid of pollen, it even now gets rid of viruses and bacteria, but it eliminates odors. Any odor, cannot stand it. I travel with one. You can hold it in your hand. I keep one in my travel bag. I've used it in rental cars where someone smoked, in hotel rooms where the people next door were smoking. It wipes out the odors, cooking odors. When I fry shrimp in the kitchen, my wife gags, and so I use the Eden Pure Thunderstorm, and it wipes out the odors. She hates the smell of shellfish. EdenPureDeals.com, the discount code Eric Bogo, ERICKBOGO, no odor can stand up to the Eden Pure Thunderstorm. Hello there. Welcome. It is Eric Erickson here. Those of you on the phones, be patient. I went long with Victoria. I don't have a time to get your phone call right here. And I got this story it could have been really, really tragic. Lucas, I don't know what his last name is. Kunce, I guess. Kunce. He is running against Josh Hawley in Missouri. He doesn't want you to know that he's super progressive. He doesn't want you to know that he wants to pass gun control legislation. He doesn't want you to know any of the stuff about how super progressive he is. He did an event with Adam Kinzinger. Kinzinger is rallying people to stop pro-Trump Republicans like Hawley, and this Lucas Kunce guy shot a reporter at his event. They were at a gun range. They were at an outdoor gun range event, and he shot a reporter with an AR-15. Now, he didn't fire at the reporter, but he was shooting steel targets, and the steel targets weren't more than 15 feet away, which anybody who knows anything about guns, including you would think a Marine would know, you don't shoot steel targets that close. And it ricocheted and shot the reporter in the arm. Now, what's notable about it is the super left-wing Kansas City Star newspaper, and they are on the left. Instead of reporting about how this progressive candidate against Josh Hawley shot a reporter, they decided to dwell on how this progressive candidate knew exactly how to bandage the wound of the reporter who was hit by ricocheted shrapnel at the event. Good Lord. You know, and I know, if it was a Republican, the Kansas City Star would be crucifying the person for shooting a reporter. But because it's a progressive who didn't exercise basic gun safety at an event of his own, they're willing to cover for it and say, what a great guy he is, bandaging the man he accidentally shot. You should see there are pictures out of this. Adam Kinzinger is at this event, and Adam Kinzinger looks like a man who just realized he hitched his wagon to the wrong horse. Yes, you did, Adam. This guy's not going to win. And he shot a reporter accidentally at his own event. What an idiot.